Good morning, and welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production. It is April 22nd, and this is episode 55 as we go into the week. Lots in the news. Lots in the news. But I'm going to go over about 4 items and then probably go into a rant on a couple of others. The first thing that I would like to do, of course, the host, Johnny Costa, is go over what a lot of people are talking about as far as the Alien Enemies Act. And it's an interesting... as I faded to black and hit the wrong transition button. There we go. Much better. Though I'm sure a lot of people liked it going to black. All right. And a lot of people have their opinions on the Alien Enemies Act, which is, a very old act. Part of the sedition acts that were made in the 1789, and that had to do with, of all things, fighting with France, who helped us win the revolution. So it's just interesting how the tide turns. And it was done for people that were not considered to be Americans at that time, that the government could round them up, and to the even point to curtail free speech. Some of those 4 of the sedition acts that were in the Alien Enemies Act had expiration dates. So they kind of fell off to the side, except this one. And it was 1798, I was correct. And it was part of the Alien and Sedition Act. And it was designed as a supplement to the Alien Friends Act, which is, of course, the language used back then is different than the language. And I said, that's where people have to understand the Constitution has to be interpreted in the language that was written at the time and the meaning of such. But we'll discuss that later. So, what this did, the law granted the President of the United States the power to arrest, relocate, or deport any male over the age of 14 who originated from a foreign enemy nation. While other controversial components of the Alien Sedition Acts face significant opposition and later expired, the Alien Enemies Act remained in effect and continued to be part of U.S. law today. Probably the most famous use of it was putting Japanese citizens, non-combatants, and American Japanese citizens in what was called relocation camps. Now, what you have to understand is to invoke this act, you do not need a declaration of war. That's right. Congress does not need to say you must declare, it must be declared war. Doesn't need to do that. If the Congress declares war, the president then can, do this anyway. But the president can invoke the Alien Enemy Pact only upon his determination. His determination. And proclamation that a foreign nation or government is conducting or threatening an invasion or predatory incursion into the territories of the United States. So, all the president needs to do is saying that these countries are allowing these people to march through other countries to get to our country and cross the border illegally. That's it. That's it. Those that challenge the president through the judicial system and then up through to the Supreme Court, they're going to lose this one. It's going to be a loss for the Democrats who are fighting this, because only Congress can repeal this. The president is acting within his executive power. And I would find it almost impossible for the Democrats to win on any portion of this. Just not going to happen. The case of that is going on right now, and it's not even a case, really isn't, of Kilmar in El Salvador not facing due process. He didn't need to face due process. The president does not need to do due process. It does not need to happen. I understand the argument about due process, and that these people were given some protection. But at the end of the day, the president can do this and just ship him. Now, he's being halted and stopped, and he's obeying that. I think that El Salvador saying, you're not getting him back. That's it. And whether or not it was a mistake sending him there, he was an illegal. That just ends the conversation right there. It ends the conversation right there. Even though he married a U.S. citizen, you can't take an illegal act and then make that act legal. Just so you can't do that. It can't be done. So he is still considered undocumented. And even though he was, so they say, trying to become a citizen, I've yet to see that. He's an illegal, and the president is authorized within this act to do this. Now, this act was challenged in 1948, and Lodiki versus Watkins. And this was about a German citizen, a German national that was in the United States. And he was locked up. And at the end of the war, he then asked that he be removed, that the war's over. And he went to the court and habeas corpus, stating that since the war was over, his being held was still what was illegal and unlawful. There was no longer a war, and so he should be out. Now, the Supreme Court said, no, you stay in there until hostilities and a formal peace treaty is signed. And the ruling was enforced and did enforce the broad powers of the United States government under the law and the president's power. And that was a 5-4. That was a close decision, but it was 5-4. So there is vetted cases on this, and there were a few of them. This isn't the only one, but this was a big one because it said, yeah, even though the fighting stopped and all this, and we're no longer fighting with them, no, you're not getting out. So we know all the details. I don't know if I got his... I'm sorry, I said Kilmore. I don't think that was right. That was it was Garcia. But the Alien Enemies Act gives the president the power to deport. And all he does is have to proclaim the fundamentals of the act. Now, if El Salvador and Venezuela and Brazil and Ecuador and all these other countries, we're stopping our people from doing this. We're not allowing them to exit the country without a passport and without, they're coming back or they have immigration rights to the United States. Then I don't think the president could use this because there is a formal declaration from these countries that this will cease. But the president then has to see that it's happening, just in that 5-4 decision in 1948, where, and that was 1948, the war ended in 1945. So it took a while for everything to settle down and hostilities to end. A lot of people don't realize there was major pockets of resistance inside Germany after World War II, and fighting that had continued. There was homegrown resistance. So Germany was not like, oh, the war's over and everyone happy and dancing in the streets. That was not the case. I think up until like the late 1940s, I think 2,500 or 2,900 servicemen were killed in the European theater afterwards by resistance fighters of the Allies. And in Germany, I'm pretty certain that until 1948 or 1950, any person caught with a gun on them could be shot on the spot. So if you were doing something and you were caught with a gun, the military police had the right to shoot you on the spot. So, tough times. But the Alien Enemies Act don't stand a chance. And even if this guy was sent to El Salvador incorrectly, he wasn't given his he wasn't entitled to due process. And you can argue that all day, but the act says he's not entitled to it. Now, you want Congress to change that? There is a way to make that happen. Get moving, Democrats. But in the meantime, I think that the government, meaning President Trump, is on pretty solid ground here. Pretty solid ground. So, as reported in CNN, Democrats rally around Garcia's case, but some worry a due process argument won't land with voters. Yeah, it's not, because this guy was the wrong guy for the Democrats to hitch their wagon to. And I'm not saying that this guy in 2021, which was 4 years ago, and there was a complaint filed by his wife in her own words, in her own writing, that he had beat her and she was afraid of him, and was granted an order of protection, which expired and could not go any further because of her unwillingness to take it forward. Now, we all know from the Democrats who had taught us that all women should be believed, and that some women who are beaten are afraid to take it forward because they have been intimidated, and these are broken people. Now, she has come out and said that she went with therapy with him, and, life has been much better. And but there was a police report and a court report. Now, just right there, he should have been kicked out. Or could have been kicked out. But the Biden administration was not going to do that. And to really be truthful, I don't think the Bush administration would have done it. And at the time, I probably would even go as far as the current, if President Trump had still been in office, I doubt if he would have done this. But he would have not allowed 12 million people in 4 years to come across the border either. So the cause and effect of all this can be directly put back to Biden and Obama, and even Bush, and all of them back. All of them just go all the way back. This is just not one party. But guess what? The party ends. And Trump is going to make that party end. And I think that what will happen here, that there's enough information coming out to cloudy that water, muddy it up, that this was not a good guy. This was not a very good guy. And they have a traffic stop 2022 where it appears, but never followed through, so you can't do it. But what was he doing? He's going from job to job. How is he working? How is he doing all this stuff? And they said they were going from, point A to point B. They had no luggage, nothing, no changes of clothes. Something was hinky about it. But the police officer who stopped them just gave them a warning ticket, and that's it, because probably, he wasn't going to get fired for this, Obviously, they did not find any drugs in the car, or there was no suspicious, enough activity for them to do a real search. Unless they just decided that we're not going to do it. Since they didn't have luggage or anything, and they must have looked in the car, and they didn't see anything a weapon or anything like that. So their thought was this could be possibly human trafficking. And human trafficking does not need to be, taking a female somewhere. It's just taking illegals from point A to point B across state lines. So, and there was an informant who had said that he was part of the MS-13 gang. Now, he was part of a gang member in El Salvador, and something must have happened that he wanted out of there because he got threatened by him, and he left. And he came over here illegally, and that's enough. It is enough, folks, for the president to go, I understand they didn't find you guilty of this. You never went to trial for that. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Can I see your documentation papers? Oh, you don't have any? Bye. Out. That's it. That's all this other stuff that the Democrats are putting up, and he's a good father. That might all very well be, but it's not germane to the case. You just need one. Are you here legally? Did you come across that border legally? When you came through that border, did you say I'm being persecuted or no, you didn't. You came through, you said it later after you were here and got jammed up. So, no. Out you go. And that is allowed to be done. It's exactly why that Alien Enemies Act is there. That it doesn't have to get jammed up in the courts. Because the president is the highest executive person. And this comes under his title of protecting the United States. So I think the Democrats are going to be on the losing end. They will go for the sympathy. They will go for the tear vote. But it's the same 48% of the people out there that are, screaming and yelling. And so I don't think that's going to carry too far on a federal level. Some of those states, they're still going to be blue states and blue people. But I think that in a state like New York, I think they're going to have a red governor, and that whole state is going to shift around. Because people just had enough of this nonsense. They've had enough of this nonsense. And, you have you have Van Hollen, saying that this is an affront to our democracy. Now, what was an affront to our democracy, sir? Was Joe Biden running a primary, winning his primary, and then 3 people forcing him out of an election that he did not want to not have. And he was forced out. And then you anointed someone the people never voted for in a primary. to run as president. Now, voting, regardless, now, the voting in primaries is not protected under, voting like we would in a honest to goodness seat election. It's just primaries. You're just seeing who's going to be the top dog. But the idea of voting is elementary to our democratic process. We look at that. We look at that as being fair. That's a good way to do it. That people in the back room shouldn't be making a decision for us. Let the people make that decision. And the people did make the decision. The Democratic Party wanted Joe Biden to run a second term. And there were people who conspired against Joe Biden. And there were people who should have spoken up way, way early to say, hey, Joe Biden shouldn't run and we shouldn't put him on the ticket. And we should get some other people up there and just say, Joe, you can't run. Now, Joe could have run then and could have challenged it, but that was never allowed. That wasn't done. So, Joe Biden lost his first debate, and it was a stunning defeat, and predicted. Trump called it. Trump called it. And you just can't, deny that fact. Trump called it. And then, of course, the media and everyone else jumped on the wagon and lied. Oh, she's going to win every the blue wall. And, there's a good chance she'll take Florida and Texas and Iowa. Yeah. And everyone's looking and going, where are you getting these numbers from? And when people ask that, no, you're an anti-woman. You're anti-democracy. But how can this be? We're doing independent audits or polling over here, and we're not getting those numbers. Well, your guys are lying to you. Your numbers, are fake. Well, guess what? Guess what? Anything coming out of the Democrats, I would not believe. They're not trustworthy. And Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He said he was going to do this. This comes at no surprise that Trump is doing exactly what he said he would do. And you guys can't stand it. So, in other news, and this is from Fox, more than 500,000 immigrants have missed their court hearing on Biden's watch. More than 500,000 immigrants failed to show up for the immigration court hearings under former President Joe Biden. Between fiscal year 2022 and December 2024, immigration judges issued more than 507 in absentia removal orders for those that did not show up for their hearings. The number represented a 45% increase in such cases compared to previous 7 years under former President Barack Obama and President Donald Trump's first term. So, we have seen under the Biden administration their willingness not to have these people show up and nothing being done about it. Now, to be fair, Joe Biden did, his administration, have a list of 1.6 million people that had to go, that were on the deportation, but they never acted on it. They refused to act on it. So, why have a law if you're not going to act upon it? And this was done by the Biden administration with the idea, and the Democrats, with the idea that if we can stall this long enough for a second term by either Biden, which wasn't going to happen, or Harris, and winning of the Congresses, we would get these people all in as citizens. We'd be the hero, and for the next 20 years, they'd have a democratic machine. Didn't quite work out that way, and it will not work out that way. And your plan has been exposed, and is being exposed. We stopped hearing about how Doge is going to ruin everything, because it's not true. It is not true. And, how Trump is going to, he's on the outs with Musk, and now he's out to the Secretary of, the Secretary of Defense, that he's out. Oh, it's not true. The media is still on this kick of lying. And say uninformed sources or unnamed sources, and really is uninformed sources, but they're outright lies. And we know it. And the 3 people removed from the Pentagon and said, we didn't do anything. Yeah, guess what? Guess what? You're removed. And if you want to fight it, go ahead and fight it. But we're going to show proof. And then a lot of other people are going to go. So, this is a major issue of leaks. And yeah, you're going to have people making mistakes and using, communications incorrectly. And it really shouldn't happen in today's world. And I don't understand why these people are even allowed to use non-secured or non-governmental direct, specially built by the military phones that use their own protocols and everything else. And there has to be a way of doing it. I know for a fact there is a way to do it. And why we're not doing it, I don't know. Maybe the CIA doesn't want this. We want to know exactly what they're saying. I don't know. I said there's always a conspiracy under a conspiracy under a conspiracy. But going back to the 500,000 immigrants, and they're not immigrants, these are illegals. And these are the ones we know of. How about all the other ones we have no idea who they are? And that gets me to my third. The beautiful 14th Amendment. And people screaming up and down birthrights. And again, They're saying, under the jurisdiction, they're under the jurisdiction of the United States. That's all they need to do. Yeah, but you fail to read what gets them to that jurisdiction. It's called sovereignty. And we have to know what your intentions are. You say you want to immigrate here, and as such, you must give up your claim to your... Are you prepared to give up your claim against the nation that you have left from? You don't have to do it now. You just have to tell us and fill out this paperwork that is your intention if you're going to immigrate here. That you can't act as a conduit for another nation. And that's what that's all about. But when you don't make that declaration, well, then you don't get the protection of the jurisdiction. Now, if you take a look at the intentions of the 14th Amendment was to correct the problem with the 13th Amendment, to do with slavery, and these people are here, and they did not immigrate here. They had they never were given the right to go, hey, oh yeah, I love being a slave. I love being here in America. I give up all my rights in Africa or whatever nation I came from over there. They were never given that right. And neither were their children. And so that had to be addressed. And they had to be given citizenship because there was no other way to deal with it. And it had to be done in this manner because you had states that were still hostile to the political climate of no slaves. So the 14th Amendment addressed this. And it wasn't done for any other reason than to fix those that were brought here under chain. And those that were born here under chain. It is my belief that the courts will rule. It will be close, but not as close as it could be a 6-3. Definitely will be a 5-4. I mean, I can't see the courts ruling and saying, well, the intent, and now the intent is different. No. I think there's enough people there to say, no, this was the intent, this is what it was for. It does not give blanket protection. That's it. So now if you're an illegal here and undocumented and you have children, they are also then illegal here. And even though they might go to schools, I think the adult children over 18 can be given the right to become citizens, go through the process, because they had no say in coming here. They were children, or they were born here. They had no say in it. But if they're adults now, get them on board. But that doesn't mean that anchors the parents there. And that can beg for another way for these people to get citizenship. You've been here, so we're going to say that in the next 5 years, you can apply, but over the next 5 years, we get to kick you out if you violate the law, if it's so, and I'm not talking a traffic ticket. I'm not talking about setting off fireworks in your backyard or something like that. I'm talking about bad crimes. You break into someone's house, you steal a car, you shoplift, you hurt someone, you destroy property, you act in an illegal manner at a protest. Yeah, you're out. And that's the way that works. But we must come up with an avenue. And then we must now protect the border from anyone else coming in and trying to do that. And just say that anyone after this date that we catch here illegally that has not documented themselves or applied or blah, blah, and we can out. You have no due process clause, and it's over with. You're out. So we can try that route. I don't think that people would have a problem with that. Well, people will have a problem with that, but I don't think that I don't think that it is not something we could get a hurdle over. That's able to be reached, and nothing is ever perfect, and no one is ever happy. Not everyone is ever happy. So, all right, but Trump will win the 14th Amendment argument. I'll put money on it. Harvard sues Trump administration over threats to cut funding if demands go unmet. And Harvard is saying that Trump administration threatening to withhold funding if the school does not comply with its list of demands. And the lawsuit was filed in Massachusetts, asking a judge to block the funding freeze from going into effect, arguing the move is unlawful and beyond the government's authority. Now, it's government's money. I think the government should have a say on where that money goes and how it gets spent. It's not a grab bag. It's not a birthday gift. It is money that we're going to give, that I'm going to give, that you are going to give, and there has to be some strings attached to it. The school is saying that by disallowing it, it's an infringement of their First Amendment rights. Really? Really? So what they're saying is that by not giving them the money, because the school wants to be able to say Jews are bad, or Jews are good, or Palestinians are bad, or Palestinians are good. Or by saying, no, black people come first and white people come third. Or white people come first and black people come third. That's what they're saying. That's the argument that they're making, that their freedom of speech shouldn't be tied to them getting money. Well, their problem is their freedom of speech just wasn't freedom of speech. They were actions that were taken against groups. And with that, you don't get the money. And it's that simple. The money can't be used for DEI. If you have a a black. I'm going to hold on to black here. Hold on 1 second. And we're back. I'm going to edit that. You're going to see a little black slug in our edit. That was because we've been getting phone calls from a scammer who claims to be with Wells Fargo, and we don't have Wells Fargo. So, called all last night. All right. So, Harvard fighting with Trump over free speech and the money. Give us the money. We should be able to say whatever we want to. Give us the money. Well, guess what? Not going to happen. Or not without a fight. And this is a university that has $50 billion that you have to pay to go to this private college. This isn't a city college or community college. And they want $2 billion for their research study. Well, you know what? If the research is so cutting edge, get it from private industry. Get it from private donations. Personally, I think any money coming from the federal government should only go to schools that are open to everyone. There you go. This whole idea of just giving money away because that's what we do in Congress, well, I think that's going to be the big coming to light in the midterms. And Trump doesn't have to do anything but just show all this stuff. And it could be a problem for Republicans too. You might need a new batch of Republicans going in there. And I have no problem with that either. You know, you can call yourself a Republican, but if Republican in name only, we'll put someone in there that's a Republican. Our Congressman Fry from South Carolina. He replaced someone who called themselves a Republican but acted differently, and He's no longer, Tim Rice is no longer part of the political process here in South Carolina. So, just throwing that out there, folks. Now, from the Hill, basketball former player and owner now, Charles Barkley, says Shapiro and Moore the best bet for Democrats for the 2028 presidential race. Shapiro, of course, governor of Pennsylvania, and Moore is the governor of Maryland. I don't think either one of them are going to be on the ticket. Shapiro, as much as he is a sharp guy, and he has too much luggage, and it's going to be too hard for him to overcome it come the primary time. And if he were, I don't think it's going to be Gavin Newsom either. I think these people had their day. And Beto O'Rourke and all these other people, they're just not going to be there. Pete Buttigieg. Nope. No, we haven't seen a Democrat yet that you could honestly say, oh, this guy, you know, this guy has a shot at it. Or, you know, this guy sounds reasonable enough. We haven't heard that yet. So, you're going to be hearing from people that, you know, yes, everyone, no borders. Yes, we need DEI. Yes, we need to teach children LGBTQ in the schools. Our history is horrible. We're terrible people. And that's what you're going to get. And I think that ship has sailed. I mean, they sailed it right into the rocks. I don't see an AOC, a Bernie Sanders, a Warren. You're not even hearing from Pelosi anymore, and you hardly hear from Warren. Some of these people are just by the side and gone. AOC, and AOC is just honestly a smart child, but with no real intentions of doing anything. Another one that screams and yells and then just walks away. She could have had her community get jobs and everything, and she destroyed that. Her community is being overrun with prostitution and drugs, and she's nowhere to be found. She's in California rallying people. Why isn't she in Queens and the Bronx rallying people? All right. Hey, listen, Democrats, I don't know what the fix is for you guys, but whatever you're doing now, that ain't the fix. The economy, in 100 days, Trump wasn't going to fix it. We knew he wasn't going to fix it. We waited 4 years for him to come in here and start fixing it. And we know it's going to take a while. And we know, yeah, the markets are going to take hits. And, there's going to be this up and down. Yeah. I mean, people in the S&P lost about 10%. And if you were going to retire in the next year, yeah, you might be concerned. If you're 45 years old and in the S&P as in your 401, you got nothing to worry about. It will grow and grow and grow and grow. And you have seen it grow. And if you've been in it for 20 years, you've seen the S&P triple. So your 10% on what you made, yes, it's money, only if you're going to take it out today. If you're not going to take it out today, then it's just a bump. And again, I do not give financial advice. I am not a financial advice expert, nor do I endorse or tell you how you should invest. That is not what I'm here for. I'm just here to say that the market has always recovered. And it might take 50 years. Yeah, okay, I can't say that can't happen. But I would say if you take a historical look at the market, this is not the first time the market has dropped down 10%. So, I understand saying, hey, relax. It's just that this is what markets do. And there's a lot of components in these markets now. And there's a lot more action. And they happen quicker and recover quicker. And, it's just something that people are going to have to understand. And if you're just going to show the gloom, they're doing repairs on my street here. And of course, they decided to come on my side of the street to do it. Now, hopefully they're going all the way down to the end of the street and starting it. But the economy and the market will eventually recover and stabilize. And that's really what you're trying to do. You're not trying to prop it up, because unless it's propped up right, then it's just going to stay propped up. And then when it does fail, then it fails spectacularly. This has to do with trade. It has to do with our dollar. And of course, it has to do with China. And it's interesting because, Putin is now saying that he'll talk and Trump has said, hey, either you guys start talking with me about the Ukraine war and stuff, or, then other bad things are going to happen. And I think that Putin is getting on board with Trump, where Trump goes, listen, you're sitting on all these resources, you're sitting on everything. We're stopping you and blocking you and doing this, and I really need you to get out there and push oil. And you can do it, and we'll let you legitimately do it. And then at the same time, we're going to cut a deal with Iran and tell Iran, hey, we have a problem with your government. We don't have a problem with your oil or your people. You want to sell oil? This is what you're going to do. And if you are not going to build nuclear weapons and that you're telling us, then you don't have any problems with us looking, because that's what we're going to do. And without it, you're not going to sell oil. And we're going to build a wall around you and make it hard for anyone to deal with you except China and Russia. And we'll build walls around them too. So it will be interesting. And I think Trump is using, say, hey, it's all about the money. Russia has so much gold, has so much oil, has so many diamonds, minerals, that if they really wanted to, they can crush all these countries. But so they get all the money, and the money isn't worth anything. And what have they gotten? They got nothing. And they don't have their oil anymore because they sold it. And they don't have their diamonds anymore because they sold it. And they don't have their gold anymore because they sold it. And they have a piece of paper that is worthless because the world economy has collapsed. So they're not stupid. But they're also not blind to see that, hey, if they're left out of this, we won't reap the benefits, and that's what we're looking to do. We want a piece of this action. And India and everyone else will get on board. Japan is already on board. That's going to be a big thing for them. And you're going to have companies like China that says, we'll build stuff here. And we'll build it here, and we'll sell it to you. And if that's what you want us to do. And the money will go back to China. And China will then go, well, we'll build some of this here and some of it over there, and then we'll blend it together, and there'll be a middle ground. Because you got to remember, China has people they have to employ too. I mean, it's just not, of course, they're basically a slave state. That doesn't put us on too competitive of a financial playing field with them, level. So we want, if they want to sell here, they got to build here. If not, they got to pay the tariffs. If they won't build it here, we'll find someone to build it here. What took 5 years to do nowadays, you could do in 8 months. If it's done correctly. So the idea of, ramping up to do this, not too difficult. And remember, these are going to be assembly jobs and things like that where it's all going to be done automated. You will have QC done that is 95% automated. But you'll need people to repair it. You'll need people to install it. There's always changes. And where you needed 100 people on an assembly line, you might only need 12 now. And that's from, all the way down, just like, shipping and receiving, where you needed loaders and all this. It can all be done with computers now. You don't need stevedores, doing all this stuff. You don't need that. It's all computer operated. But you need people that know how to do it, to know how to operate it, to know how to fix it. You need spare parts, and so there will be jobs. There'll just be new types of jobs, but you will not need the numbers that you needed. But if you bring enough jobs back here to do it, there might be enough jobs for a lot of people. And then, of course, the ancillary jobs. You build a couple of these factories around here, and then you need gas stations for people to get to them, coffee shops, restaurants, housing, and it self feeds. And you get unions, but you can't have a union if you don't have jobs. And if you don't have jobs, you're not, there's no one to, have a restaurant for or a coffee shop. So it's all connected. I think Trump is on the right idea, but he knows that he only had a limited amount of time to do this in. Very, very limited amount of time. And he had to strike and strike hard. And I think in the end it will work out. It will work out. Of course, the other thing in the news, the Pope Francis is gone. As a Catholic, I was not really super impressed with the Pope. Little bit too liberal, but the whole idea, of inclusion in the church is something that I understand, but there are certain things that you can't, the church just can't accept. If it wants to be the church, that was the church. So, it'll be interesting to see, the names that are tossed out. We'll see. The other thing that has been in the news but has really quieted it down was the Florida shooting. And not certain on why that's not getting the press of where it really should be, where this kid obviously had problems, of course. And you're not going to stop a person who has problems from doing bad stuff. But I think, again, how was he able to take the weapon, which was his mother's service weapon? How was he able to get access to this? And the only way I know that a person would have access to it is if they were given access to it. Unless they can show that he took a sledgehammer to it and broke it open and did whatever, then all right. But I haven't heard anything like that. And there were reports from people saying that he was, never a grounded individual, and they never felt safe with him, and yeah. But DEI, in that school, allowed him to be there. He's allowed to be different, I guess. Not sure when you come onto campus or you go into those different dorms or you go into the restaurant hall, is there a metal detector? How sad that, to go eat you have to go through a metal detector, but and him shooting, I don't, but again, you're trying to rationalize crazy people. You do that all day. You can't, because we're rational. You can't think like a crazy person because your mind goes, no, don't, you can't go down that road. And you just can't. So, tragic, loss of life. But we have we have more than enough gun control. It's obvious we don't have enough people control. Where if this kid was wacky and everything else, maybe he should have been somewhere else other than a college campus. But again, you've seen perfectly normal people do perfectly horrible things. So sometimes you just don't know. So that seems to be it that I'm going to report of. There's a lot of stuff in there, a lot of stuff, and I can go into it. And I've been a little negligent in my reporting here. A lot of stuff going on. Remember, it was holiday week, and I traveled, and I'm going to travel again, and I'm going to travel again. But I think I'm going to do a show out of Disney. Just a quick little show. And it's not going to be critiquing Disney or saying anything about Disney or any of their corporate attitudes. I'm just going to be there, and we'll be taking and talking for about 30 minutes or 35 minutes on different topics, just like I do here. But in the background will be Disney. And the only thing that is going to happen with that is because of the way my camcorder works. You're going to see a date stamp and a time stamp in there, but I'm going to try to block it out when I do my editing. And but I may not. I might not care. Because really, aren't you here just to hear me? So we'll see. And that's about it. I will be starting in May, moving the channel from my YouTube, and not moving it, but also supplementing it on X platform, same content, and also then at same doing Facebook. And Facebook, I'll be giving out how to get to those pages and using QRC codes. And I'm not a big fan of QRC codes because you never know what you're clicking on how that works. But mine will just take you to my site, and that's it. And that's, I promise you, is all that will happen. It won't go anywhere fancy. It's not going to be sold. Nothing. None of this is being monetized. Well, who'd pay for this? But it's not being monetized. So I have no secret agenda out there. Just me imparting the brilliance to you, mainly Bob in New York. But big shout out to Chris and Rowan and Danielle, Paul, Cannoli, and we'll be having some stuff relevant to the 14th Amendment. And again, I had, that I'm doing, but I did promise the statistics on crimes. Finding it very difficult to get up-to-date information that is not biased. And biased one way and biased the other way. So I'm trying to sort it out, and it is very, very difficult. And the problem I'm facing is that some of the information that was being reported to the FBI was not being used in their database because they changed what they considered a crime. And then you had states that had said, breaking into a house is no longer a crime, or breaking into a car is no longer a crime, or shoplifting is no longer a crime. And so when you started doing that, and you could make the reference, oh, look, the crime did go down. Well, yeah, because it's not being reported as a crime. You could get rid of all the murder rate if you made murder unreportable. So that's what's going on there. All right, I'm going to have to do some editing on here because of the Wells Fargo call. And we'll fix that. And with that, say a prayer. Give to a charity. Make sure they don't call you and scam you or try to scam you. You reach out to a charity, and then you will not be scammed. Give what you can give. Charity begins at home. I do understand that. And with that, I am now really going to fade to black.